kind of been, like, just prepping to chat with you. Of course, I've kinda looked you up on the internet some more and stuff like that, and, I feel like in some ways I'm kind of for myself, learning more about you almost in chronologically reversed order. You know, this album being a fairly recent release. It was last year. About almost
Yeah.
exactly a year ago now, actually, isn't it? Um,
Yeah, like put it out first on Bandcamp and just
yeah.
let it do its thing on Bandcamp. And then when Bandcamp sales kind of started slowing down, then I put it out on streaming
Mhm.
this year sometime, maybe in February, I think it was.
And I think it was in a flute group on Facebook or something that I saw someone mention the album, and I was like, "Well, that looks interesting."
Oh,
And that was kind of
nice.
what pulled me into it. But it feels like, like it's a fairly recent project compared to a lot of other stuff you've done previously, of course. And so it's like in like sleuthing around about you on the internet, it's like I'm finding more and more stuff, like, oh, the like the short films that you've had music in, for example. That
Yeah,
Misery Loves Company one, that was awesome. That was like
yeah.
delightful. And the other bands you've played with too. You like, and not to mention that I'm probably gonna say his name wrong. Sean O'Meara. Sean O'Meara.
Sean O'Mara, yeah.
He plays with the Olam
The
right now,
Olam, yeah.
and I'm
Yeah,
just obsessed with the Olam, man. Love that band. And so
yeah.
then to see you, I'm like, oh, those other musicians look really familiar. Who's Connor playing with here? You know what I mean? And so
Yeah.
like I'm getting increasingly starstruck as I find out more about you.
Oh, not at all.
I'm also curious though, Connor, how do you feel about this album? Because like, so that means I've come to your work from this angle of like, here's the album, and then looking kind of back and around it. That's my starting point for like learning about your work, right? In general.
Mm.
Do you feel like this album is a good place for a person to start? Or I guess what I'm really trying to ask is, do you feel like this album encapsulates sort of like a summary of your work up to this point? Or is it kind of like,
Yeah.
well, no, it's just, oh, okay. Yeah, go ahead. Tell me about that. I'm curious about that.
Yeah, so like the initial question was, do I think it's a good place to start? But I do. I think any of the points are a place to start because it's whatever has attracted you to it.
Mm,
This is what it is. But someone else might be more attracted to some of the more trad offerings, or depends on the timing or who the
mhm.
listener is. But yeah, I think it's a good place to start. And also, the other thing you said was, do I think it encapsulates me? And I think this is the one project that is the most has the most genuine, not genuine, but like fair print of myself in
Interesting.
it. Um, Partly because throughout the whole project, this has been on the cards for years and years, and those soundtracks that you listen to,
Mm,
are kind of on the lead up to this. This is I've DJ'd for many years and produced electronic music, but I also played the flute. So I had these two different lives, and I always knew that I should combine them at some point. But for one reason or another, I never did. And then when it came to this project, I was like, right, this is it. And the most important thing is to stay true to myself. I'm always, so every single decision and sound, I was the only person that had to be happy with it. So I never overthought anything, or I never wondered what other people would think, or I never scrutinized it in a way unnatural to me. I just always let it flow. And because I knew that was the best way to allow it be me, let's say. So yeah,
I love
so
hearing something like that, Connor. I feel like I've heard David Gilmour of Pink Floyd said something like that once. Something like, do whatever you're doing, do it in a way that makes you happy, because you can't decide if
yeah,
other people are gonna like it or not. But I
yeah,
also can't help imagine. Like, I'm curious, is that, do you have to work at being able to stay clear headed in that way? Like, or does it come very naturally to be like, I'm gonna do what I want? You know what I mean? Like, is that a
yeah.
vulnerable experience, or does it come very easily for you?
Well, it's not vulnerable for me now, but
Mm.
it might have been in previous years, I suppose. I kind of put it at I think it's very important to be true to yourself and follow your own voice and your own paths, regardless of what other people are doing. And I've kind of always been like that, and that's probably why you didn't know about me and then you did and you looked into it, kind of thing, because I've just been doing my thing all along, and I have little bits of flavors across different worlds of music. That's just what I'm interested in. So yeah, sorry, what did you say again? After losing my
I
track
don't
there.
remember either, Connor. Don't even worry about
Oh
it.
yeah.
But that, it is interesting
Oh,
that you
I
bring
think
that
you
up
were talking
because,
about
oh,
being vulnerable. I'm
yeah,
sorry, and
yeah.
being able to believe in yourself. Yeah, I've always been like that. And
Mm.
the work that I'm into of other people, like the interests I'm into, when I listen to them, they're just being themselves, and I find it really attractive in music and people who are just being really being themselves, and just putting it out there, whatever way it is. Like I find that a really great quality. So then I kind of aspire to to be like that myself.
That's such an interesting phenomenon. I've heard people talk about songwriting before as this. I've heard people suggest this thing where, like, if you're gonna write a song, be really specific about it. If you try to be broadly applicable, it won't apply to anyone. But if you're very specific about your own experience, like, just be about you, then you'll almost, maybe paradoxically or surprisingly, you'll find that actually it applies almost universally, because I think there's something, I don't know. I don't know why that would be the case, but I've heard people suggest that before.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me, to specialize. When I did music in UCC in Cork, and when we were leaving, John Godfrey was a great experimentalist and musician. He was like, you've graduated as musicians now, but you need to go on to specialize. You need to specialize in whatever it is that you are to be a specialist in, and you need to decide yourself. Um, and then also, I, with that in mind, like I believe in, you're the only version of yourself, and your music will always be unique so long as it's true to you. But if you try and copy other music, or you try and, replicate other stuff, then you're just creating more of that. But if you just make your music, then you're automatically creating something unique.
Mm. Well, Connor,
So,
not that
yeah.
not that I should be like the deciding factor of, like, like what's good, or what's applicable or anything like that. But I do think it's interesting that, like, for me personally, and I mean no offense to the genre in, like, broadly in any way at all. For me personally, what we might broadly call just like electronic dance music. Not that I've ever hated it, but it's never been
Yeah.
something that I've been pulled toward.
Yeah.
I haven't
Yeah.
naturally been drawn to it. And that's part of what I thought was delightful about this album, is that it kind of surprised me. Don't And I hope that comes across the right way. It
Oh, it does.
surprised me how much I liked it. Like, even from the beginning of like sequencer in track 1, you know,
Yeah.
immediately I was like, well, this isn't what I was expecting from a flute album. I'll listen on. And by the time I got to the end of track 6, it was like, I didn't, I love this. Why do I love this? It kind of
Yeah.
surprised me in a way.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you said it all there, but what you said there sounds like a real natural experience you had
Mhm.
coming. to it. And yeah, I think you answered it all there yourself. Like, it's just, it's not that a person likes or dislikes music, it's just what they've come across at a particular moment in time that they've reflected with or resonated with, and then that becomes part of something they like.
Yeah.
You said all that there, so yeah.
Well, with that first track, I'm curious about some of your choices, some of your
Yeah.
specific choices here, like what was behind them, because this one, I thought it was super cool that you had that oud doubling up with the
Yeah.
flute voice. That was really cool.
Yeah.
Had you played with? Oh, I was gonna remember the guy's name. Who was it was playing oud?
Alan
I wanted.
Reed.
That's right. Yeah. Had you played with him previously, and so you were like, hey, I know who
Yeah.
could do that. I got you. Yeah.
Yeah. Like Alan and I have been playing together as long as I've been playing with anybody, like,
Mm.
well, bar maybe one or two other people, but we met in UL um when we were in our early 20s, and we started a band called Aram, which was kind of progressive Irish music. We were
I
using,
I feel embarrassed that I haven't listened carefully to them so I could ask you more about them because I've just found that album that you put out with them last night, and I was like, "Well, this is super
oh
cool
yeah,
too. Dang it, no," so that's on
yeah,
me
like
though.
what? No, not to worry. What year? That's on Bandcamp, I think. What year was
It
that?
is, yeah.
Aram.
Well, I've got it in my wish
Um,
list now, so I could tell you right now. Let me just
I'll
pull it
send you
up.
the files. 2016. I don't even
Yeah.
know if I have the files. Alan probably does. 2016, yeah. So that was where we were at, 10 years ago.
Mm,
And Alan and I have played a lot together, and I love the oud. Some of my favorite music is
mm,
Bill Lawrence and Michael League. And I listen to a lot of music from around the world, and it's a lot of oud and Persian music, and I really, really enjoy that. And I thought that I knew I wanted it somewhere.
mhm.
And then as I was just working on the project, that kind of melody kind of came into the mix, and then I was like, oh, this is the one. So I knew at some point that I wanted Alan on the oud. I didn't know what piece. And then when this tune kind of appeared, I was like, oh, this is the one. So it was like Alan's one of the first people I call for nearly anything I haven't that comes up or I have in mind. Alan is, in the top group of people that I'm calling to collaborate with, to work with, or play with. Or I actually played with him last night, so
Yeah.
we're playing a lot.
Yeah. Well, that's very interesting. I was curious how many of these sounds you're carrying in your head at all times. Like, have you found sort of like a palette of sounds that you want to kind of stick with, in a way, or kind of utilize? Because I'm imagining, and please correct me if I'm wrong. I'm imagining that like with a lot of the stuff that is, like maybe MIDI controlled, you can pull that up and make it happen. But when it comes to something like an oud, you got to know a guy, right? or play
Yeah,
yourself, one or the other.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, I think I have the sounds in my head without knowing where they're going to come from or how
Mm,
I'm going to make them. I think that palette of sounds, as you said yourself, for Aerophone, I think that was in me for a long time, and I really feel like I've been with it now and released it now, and I'm thinking about a different album now. I'm kind of starting work on more of a trad style
mm.
flute bat led kind of band album now that is not like Airphone at all.
Well, I'm
Uh,
looking forward to that because I love hearing you play your trad stuff as well.
oh, thank you. Yeah. So yeah, I think that's something I think I really needed to do Airphone for myself, and now I actually feel like I really need to do this, kind of put myself down on the record. But also, like, I love playing trad, so partly putting myself down on the record, and then other part, just enjoying that music now.
Speaking of kind of flute forward stuff, it's not like the flute disappears in the mix at all. It is certainly front and center throughout the album. In fact, maybe we'll listen to a little bit of track 2 here too. I'll pull a little bit of it in here.
Yeah, go for it.
I'm a very new I'm very much a newcomer to the world of flute, both playing and appreciating it. And so I don't think I have quite the right vocabulary for everything here, but I really like the tone that you're playing with. Like it's warm, it's like wide in a way. I am curious about your instrument itself. What kind of flute are you playing? How many keys does it have on it? That kind of stuff. What's the instrument like?
Yeah, so I'm playing a 6-keyed African Blackwood simple system flute from Stefan Morvan, who's a really amazing maker from Brittany. And so to do with the sound, like the reason I play his flutes, and I'll continue to play his flutes and have more coming, is I think his has such a beautiful natural wooden sound, but it also has lots of room for you to colour the sound. So there's a lot of scope there in the instrument itself to use darker tones or real clean tones, like narrow kind of hard sounds is a word to kind of use when you talk about flute. Then also really bright high-end sounds like I'm using an AEROPHONE. So the tone in AEROPHONE is because the flute is the lead instrument on a big full electronic kind of bass drums led synth led track. So if you use kind of a narrow color on the flute, you're not gonna be the lead, so
Gotcha.
you have to use a wide tone. So using a lot of harmonics in your sound, and that's making you stand more in front without having to turn you up too loud. So on AEROPHONE, I blow in that kind of full frequency sound, but then also the mix then afterwards is making sure that intention is delivered. So having a really great instrument, blowing it the way that this track wants, and then mixing it really well. Killian King mixed it, he's amazing. So mixing it really well then was the next thing to make sure that the flute was the lead, because a voice is usually the lead or a brass instrument in this kind of music. And the whole point of AEROPHONE was like, I want to put the timbre flute in that spot. The flute is never in that spot. So what's it take to be a lead? So they were questions I worked with, and then I think I'm really happy with the sound of the flute. It's it's really nice. I like it.
Often the lead or a brass or something like that, because the title is Can You Hear Me Calling? And this is just a thing I like to do when I get a new album. I like to listen to it without knowing what the tracks are called, just to kind of see where it takes me first, and then kind of see what it might be put down about it. So I've been listening to it for a while, and then in my little notes that I put together to interview you, this is what I wrote. This is before I read the little blurb that you added about the track in Bandcamp. So I wrote, I love the first 3 minutes of this track, but I really love that moment halfway through when the regular beat comes in and then the melody seems like it's singing, and it's like it's saying, can you hear me calling? Did you have those lyrics in your head as you wrote it? And then I read your blurb. It's like, oh, that's exactly what he had in mind.
That is crazy.
So your intention came through. There you go. Yeah. Is that a common thing for you? Do you often kind of have lyrics, whether they're clear or vague, as you're coming up with a melody line, or is that unique to this track?
That's a really good question. First of all, I think that's so cool that you felt that. That's the first time I've heard of that, so I'm really happy to hear that.
Oh, it came through
Um,
strong, man. Can you hear me calling? Like it was
yeah,
right there. You know, I was like,
exactly.
oh, I wonder what else it says. You know.
Yeah, this track, this track, yes, is the answer to the lyrics and the melody, but they came together. I didn't like have a melody and slap the words on it, or think, oh, these words need the melody. They
Mm,
just came out at the same time. This track was came out very naturally.
mm.
Um, they came together, the words and the notes to me. The point of this track is I haven't had to say it out loud, so I'm just gonna think about what I'm gonna say as I'm saying it. But
Oh, sure.
the can
And
you
and
hear me
also feel
calling
free to
is
take a moment too. I can cut blank spaces out later as well,
oh
Connor.
cool,
So
thanks
no
man.
sweat.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't mind. I'm relaxed about it.
Mm.
The can you hear me calling is to do with at all times, you know, wherever you are or whoever you are, your the history of your ancestors and where you've come from, the place and the people have all are all the reasons that you are where you are. And can you hear me calling is supposed to be the like a wise um ancestor or ancestors. They're trying to connect with you to guide you on your way. Because if you ever practice any sort of spirituality, or even not even doesn't have to be spiritual, but working with yourself, you often find that everything you need is already within yourself. And the point of this track, or the idea of this track, was that the people who have gone before you love you infinitely, and they're trying to get through to you to help you on your way, but you just need to listen to them. And so many times you just go about and you continue on your rat race or working and blah blah blah, and then sometimes you do something, or you go on holidays, or you do some sort of mindfulness practice or play some music, and you feel really grounded and you feel really connected to yourself and your source. That's kind of what this track is about. There, the ancestors saying, can you hear me calling, is in listen to us. We're helping you on your way. You just need to listen. That's kind of what this track is about.
That's lovely, Connor. And I got a little bit of goosebumps here. Feel free to tell me if I'm, connecting too many dots or reading too much into it. But like
Yeah,
as you're
connect to
describing it,
Asia.
I'm like hearing it in the back of my head, and I feel like especially toward the end, but I think at parts throughout as well, there are flute voices that are kind of in the background. They're higher and lower. You know
Yeah.
what I'm talking about? And I just,
Yeah.
as you describe it, it just feels like, oh yeah, it's like multiple different voices, maybe from different times or different individuals, and
Yeah.
it's like a whispering almost, like they're at different levels
Mm,
of distance from where I am listening to this.
that's really nice. Like this track came about very naturally. They all did really. So, like for you to put words on that, like that's fantastic. That could very much be the case, but I didn't consciously make the decision to be like, I'm going to layer these voices as if they were individual voices all coming at the same time, but from different places.
Mhm.
But it is also possible that I did do that without, the conscious intention of it.
Yeah. Oh
So
man,
yeah,
that's
it's cool.
fun.
That's that track. Yeah, I'm just so happy to hear that you had that experience with that track, because it's very real, kind of deep track, and you actually picked up the meaning without without the words.
There,
So that's
there's
pretty
there
cool.
must be something to this, like being genuine thing, Connor. Because like if your intentions are really coming through like that,
Yeah,
like yeah,
what the
there
hell?
must be something there.
Yeah,
Actually,
class, isn't it?
it made me wonder too about I'm so bad with pronouncing names. Is it
Yeah, go
Killian
for it.
King? Was it Killian King you
Killian
said
King,
that did some of
Killian
the
King.
mixing?
Yeah.
So just to give Killian like all the due credit for like mixing and stuff like that,
Mm,
and I'm sure you had creative input here as well,
mm,
but those different voices that feel like they could be a little bit further away and stuff like that, all of that is a big part, and the flute tone that we were talking about before, it's all a big part of why I've found this album so much fun, especially on headphones. Um,
mm.
but it's that, oh, you know what? This is in chronological order. It's the third track. Mananan? How would you
Mananon,
pronounce?
yeah,
Yeah. Uh,
yeah.
there's just some stuff going on left and right, you know, distant and near, etcetera, that makes this one like it's a treat for the ears. Um,
Yeah.
it's a lot of fun to listen to, and, I don't know, there's like a kind of fuzziness. Maybe I don't know, is that maybe this is super obvious, Connor. Is that part of what you were talking about where, like, the electronic instruments ha are kind of like they're in tone with the breathy, woody tonality of
Yeah.
the flute? There's kind of a kind of a fuzziness almost?
Yeah, like your tone matching, because there's a style across these tracks, so you're matching. Yeah, you're partnering up different colors and different tones of different instruments to make, cohesive, comfortable sound. So yeah, the sounds are very intentional. If that answers,
Yeah.
to the flute has to that the instruments have to complement each other, unless of course you're using a sound to intentionally create tension, but
Yeah.
we're selecting every single sound that you hear has been like we've gone through with a fine tooth comb, to
Mhm.
and then even adjusted sounds. You could have one sound, you could have like 100 different slight variations of that sound, but then you kind of work with the one that you think feels the best
That
for the
that that
palette.
that makes a lot of sense because my experience being so limited, like, I've messed around in, like, GarageBand and, like, simple DAWs like
Yeah,
that, and I
that's great.
like, it's clear that what you're using here isn't just, like, the first click stock instrument. I feel like that could be done and be cool. You could turn on just a stock, like, hip hop beat and play flute over it, and it'll be cool, you know? But there's
Yeah.
something more cohesive about all the sounds that are happening in these tracks. They all kinda go together in a way that definitely seems intentional.
Yeah, they do, and that is the difference between being a flute player slash producer slash mixer slash master slash arranger, like,
Yeah.
and having, so that's one thing. And then the difference of what I had here was I got to go with my ideas to someone who was amazing at producing sound and mixing sound and understands all of that. So that was Killian to me. Like,
Mm.
I wrote all these tracks, some of them were like I composed them all, bar one actually, on Me and More, we did that together. But the other ones, I brought in whatever, like 15 tracks. Some of them are sketches, like some of them are just loops on my phone with stock. And I've often written tracks with stock drums and stock keys and stock bass. I'll just
Mhm.
whatever the quickest thing I pull up on Ableton. Or else I might have a template that has, you know, regular sounds, but they're all like based on an 808 or a live drum kit or whatever. And
Mhm.
then, you know, whatever these sounds, I'll use them and then I'll write with them and
Mhm.
then I'll change the sounds as I go. But some of the stuff I brought to Killian, we totally changed the sound of
Mm.
entirely, because he has just such this wealth of knowledge that I don't have. So he can listen to something I have and be like, and I won't even know the options for this keys sound or synth sound. And he'll be like, oh,
Yeah.
what about this? And he'll just bring me into his world of sound. And then we'll explore his options, and then find something to work in there. So the reason it sounds so good in terms of a sound, to listen to is really Killian. I'm the writer and I'm obviously the performer and I came up with the ideas, but in order for it to be at that next level that people who are into sound can like really appreciate the sound, you know, I had a really amazing producer come on from when after the tracks were composed, and then we worked together then to bring them to the end. Basically, I couldn't have made it sound this good myself. Like, it'd take me years. Like, he studied sound for as long as I've studied anything. So that's he's I just couldn't have made it sound this good on my own. So I was so lucky to be able to work with Killian, and he was digging it, and we had a really, really good time. But yeah, it's just knowing when to if you want your stuff to go to the next level, you need to be working with the people who are at the level you want to be at.
Imagining Killian like at a multi-monitored mad scientist kind of setup, and you being like, well, how about like describing in sort of like you might say like pedestrian terms, like I want the sound to be warmer, and he like knows which dials to twist and which lines to
Uh,
pull up and put down to achieve that, you know?
yeah, I suppose something like that. Like Killian and I have been best friends for a long time, and we talk a lot about sound and music and stuff like that. So we're speaking the same language. He's obviously much more advanced on the language, but we do communicate well. But we also do use like feelings and metaphors for sounds because sometimes it's hard to exactly define a sound, but it's easier to define the feel of a sound. And then I suppose that's what makes a producer then is they can interpret your, as you were saying, pedestrian description, and then he could, you know, he knows what you mean. That's what makes them producers, and Killian especially so good at what they do.
There are harmonies on that track that
Mm,
are interesting because they're like a tight interval that stays. I think it stays the same interval all the way through, which
yeah.
is that's a unique thing. How did you achieve that by playing a track once and then like doubling it and pitch bending it, or did you go through and play two times on the same flute, or what was the sort of mechanics of making that sound? I like that sound. I'm just curious, kind of how did you make that sound?
Yeah, for sure. That is a sound on the quad cortex that I use, neural DSP quad cortex. Like flute players have been used as a harmonizer. Sorry, first, I should have said
I
that first.
see. Gotcha.
Flutes have been messing around with harmonizers since they were invented. You know, flute players love harmonizers, and I don't, I don't use it that much because it is quite common. But for this track, I needed the flute just to be bigger,
Mm,
because the flute's not doing a lot, but I needed it just to be bigger. And I thought, oh, if I could stack harmonized flutes on top of each other, that would be pretty cool. And then I was like, oh, why not don't I just use a harmonizer
yeah.
and try that?
Well,
So I did.
it's one of my favorite parts when it goes into that like you could say simple, but that percussive thing was like do 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 do
Oh
do
yeah.
do, it's doubled up, and the fact that like the little you have these like subtle little slides and bends that happen as you come in and go out of stuff, and the fact that it stays together in such a tight way, I think that's
Mm.
why it's so satisfying. It's just right.
Yeah, and when I was describing it just a moment ago, that's one of the moments I was thinking about because
Ah,
in order to get that pitch bend, which I'm doing with my embouchure, in
yeah,
order to get that across multiple flute takes, you'd have had to do them all like really, really well, or
yeah,
else
it's so
do them
precise. Yeah.
straight, and
Mm,
then you could affect you on your DAW. Then you could do a pitch bend by
oh
hand with your
sure.
mouse, on it. But the more natural way was to use the harmonizer and just play freely. A
Mm,
lot of the flute playing on this is really just like none of it's not real perfect. Their perfect wasn't the point, it was all about the feeling. So if we were like, yeah, that felt good, then we were just kind of rolling with that.
yeah. That has been really fun for me doing this like reverse chronological discovery of some of the other stuff you've done, Connor, because
Yeah.
because of having listened to this album so much, um, fairly recently, it's like it's all in my head already. And so then I've watched some videos of performances that you've done elsewhere and stuff like that. And there are the little flavor touches like in between melody notes and stuff like that that I hadn't realized were maybe like parts of your musical fingerprint. And so even though you were doing those things before you made this album, for me, having listened to this album, I can see or hear those things as like, oh, like now I think, there's a decent chance that if I heard Connor playing flute, I might be like, I know who that is. You know what I mean?
Oh, that's so cool. I'm just really glad you're enjoying all that, because yeah, that is when you identify someone's style, like you are listening to those, things that they do. So yeah, that's
Mm.
cool that you're into that and your ear is tuning in there. Like that's cool.
Now, I wanted to ask you another question that might be maybe this is kind of some technical stuff that I don't know what I don't know, Connor. But
Mm.
how much were the oh, you know what? Actually, an example of this comes up in that last track, "Early Days,"
Mm.
where I just and
I'm just
I'm
looking this up now as you talk. Sorry, so I can
yeah
remember what we're talking
yeah no
about.
sweat. I wouldn't I like I'm sorry, I'm being kind of vague too, Connor. Sorry, because
Oh,
that's
early
where I want
days,
to
yeah.
ask the question about it, but I'm not sure how to get the question together. Basically,
Yeah, no,
what
it's
I'm trying
cool.
to say is I'm curious about like to what degree am I hearing instruments that are, being played in on a MIDI controller or something like that versus
Mm.
a flute? Because sometimes it's obvious that it's a flute, but sometimes I'm
Mm.
like, is that a flute heavily affected by some sort of effects later, or is it keys? And I guess
Yeah. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. That is loads of flutes being different instruments there. Yeah.
is it really? That's what it is, huh?
Yeah. Flute's doing like percussion, it's doing pad stuff,
Yeah.
and it's doing harmonies, but in pitched ranges, like
Yeah.
pitched on the computer, rather than me playing in different pitches just to get different kind of weird sounds.
Mm.
I've made an effort, not that it was unnatural, but I would totally regularly and without thinking about it, think, oh, I'm gonna make drums out of my flute sounds, or I'm gonna make bass, or I'm gonna make a whole tune out of flute sounds, and I'll play the bass line on the flute into my DAW, and then I'll use effects to drop it down into the right range, and then I could play like percussive sounds and then chop them up, reverse them, compress them, distort them, do whatever, make drum hit sounds. I could make pad sounds just by, I can play a note and drop it into a sampler, and next thing I have a full keyboard, but it's all flute tones. Like that's all stuff that's going on in this and in my electronic work for sure. So that's the general answer, that yes, there are loads of sounds on AEROPHONE that are processed, or with flute samples processed. And then there's also hardware, and then there's a lot of samples used on different instruments, different MIDI instruments, like real samples of stuff. And then there's some like digital VSTs, like Divas on there. That's a really well-known kind of electronic music. There's a lot of Diva actually. it just goes to show that like music just sometimes makes up its own mind for you. But that track was most of it was recorded into my laptop on the kitchen table, like no microphone, the little hole,
Oh,
pinhole
really?
microphone on my laptop. I was just jamming and I was like, oh, I think I have a tune idea. And I just started recording ideas into the laptop and we actually kept it. So that early days track
You
is,
didn't
we
even have
didn't,
to re-record or anything. You just kept what you
no,
had?
we
Wow.
didn't, no, we didn't record anything. We tried to do it and then we were like, this track isn't letting us
It's
change
like
it.
it's already done, huh?
Yeah. So we were like, well, we were fighting the track. I remember like where everything we tried just was like, no, the track just, that's it. That's the track. It's done. So we just left it. And it was like, so it's kind of fun. It's kind of lo-fi. It's like imperfect. It's kind of, it's for fun, you know?
Yeah. Well, and it
So
is
yeah.
fun, and it's funny when I did do the thing where I looked back and looked at the track titles and saw it, I initially thought early days, oh, maybe that means it's like about childhood or something like that, and it kind of had like that,
Mm,
probably because of the lo-fi kind of feel of it. I was like, oh yeah, it feels kind of like it's a nostalgia piece or something like that. And then
mm.
later I read the description of it, about getting up early and traveling to a surf spot in the dark. It's like, oh, early days. Oh, I see, I see. But
Yeah.
maybe it works on all levels, huh?
Yeah, and as well as that, it's early days because the file on my computer was called early days because it was at the
Ah,
very start of me producing this project.
mm,
So it was called early days. And then when I was coming up with the concept, the overall aerophone concept of this album was really about life here by the Atlantic, and early days just had multiple meanings. So I just went with what I went there in the notes about waking up early and going for a surf, but also it was early in the project and it's early in, my production journey. And yeah, so
well, it's
yeah.
kind of cool that it's in a position at the end of the track list as well. And I, tell me if I'm wrong. I think I remember reading somewhere. I'm not seeing it now on the Bandcamp page, so maybe I read it somewhere else. I thought I remembered you saying somewhere that like this project is, kind of a collection of tunes. I got the impression like you don't need to read too much into the order in which the tunes happen and stuff like
Yeah.
that. But it's kind of fun to have the early one at the end there, kind of return to the beginning in a way or something like that.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Yeah, and I'm just looking at the Bandcamp here. Yeah, it's more of a collection of tunes. It absolutely is. Like it was never intended to be an album.
Mm,
It wasn't an album, but then people started saying the word album to me, and I was like,
mm,
"What album? I'm not doing an album." It's like I'm just making music.
mm,
I think maybe I felt pressure from by the word album, what it means.
mm,
But then I just kind of got used to it. And I was like, if you want to call it an album, you can. I like whatever you can call it an album. And
mm.
I didn't just give in to the album pressure. There's
Mm.
definitely a collection of tunes. Like there were originally, well, there were probably bloody 30 tunes at the start, but I think when I went to sit down with Killian seriously, I think there were maybe 15, 12 maybe, or 15, something like that, tracks. And they were all just like, I was just like, I'm just making music. Like I'd sit down at my computer and I just didn't want the project to have any pressure from anywhere. I wanted flow state. I wanted to put myself into this music and just let this music be whatever it was, so long as it was me. And that's why I was reluctant maybe to call it an album, but then in the end it was just like, oh, whatever. It's like more of a word to describe the package, rather than it being a concept album, let's say, with a clear flow.
Maybe it speaks to that sort of like purposefully relaxed attitude about the project. That one description I read, I think it came from you, describing the collection of tunes as bang and dance music with spacey flute lines.
Yeah,
That's a pretty like sort of nonchalant, chill way to say like, here's some music. Yeah.
yeah, well, that's what it is. Like that's what it is to me. So yeah, I was just, I don't know, just like keeping it real, being true to yourself, and being authentic, and then just, I don't know, it's just music.
Speaking of growing up near the Atlantic, kind of thinking about the ocean and stuff like that, and certainly surfing, like being in the water and near the water. In fact, did I read right that you took the photo that is on the cover, that is the cover art?
No, I didn't take
Ah,
that photo.
but you've been that close to the water, right? You have at least been in
Oh,
the ocean before.
I am in the ocean as much as possible. In the
Look,
winter, like our surf season just ended. So yeah, well, if there's surf 7 days a week, we're surfing 7 days a week.
Connor,
Um,
I'm woefully ignorant about a lot of things, and one of the things that I'm ignorant about is surfing in Ireland. If
mm.
you'd said surfing to me, I'd be like, okay, is it Hawaii, or is it Australia, or is it California? Maybe those are the three places you
Yeah,
surf in my head. Like I had no idea. I did not know it was a thing there in Ireland.
yeah, surf is a big thing in Ireland. Surf is a big thing. Yeah, it's a way of life, and it's what keeps not keeps us here against our will, but it's what makes us really, really need to be here and by the sea, and live by the sea. It's amazing, yeah. Surfing in Ireland is a huge part of so many people's lives.
Well, Connor, I don't mean to put you on the spot with this, so feel free to kind of like handle it how you want. But
Yeah.
imagine for just a moment that you are talking to a guy a middle-aged guy who has spent his entire life, was born and bred in not only a landlocked area, but in the desert, surrounded by mountains, with very little
Whoa.
exposure to any kind of water ever, let alone the ocean. Because that's me. That's who you're talking to right now. So imagine you're
Yeah.
talking to me, uh, and how like maybe it's something you can't put words on. Maybe I am. Maybe this is an unfair question, but it's like I'm basically an alien to that experience.
Yeah.
How would you like describe its value to me, or what it like what it means?
Um, well, the most important value and what it means is just the sea itself. The surfing is the sport, but first of all, it's the sea. It's the energy of the sea. It's about being with something that's far, far greater than yourself and has so much life and so much power and is such a wild part of nature that you're beside and you're looking at and you can actually get into it. So to be able to live a life that allows you to spend time and be involved with like the most wild and raw piece of nature is incredible. It just is on a practical level. You get to walk beside it, you get to swim in it, you get to look at it. Sometimes it's wild, sometimes it's calm. You can sail on it, and then you can do your surfing on it. So the the big the big answer is really it's the power of the sea is the value, and the the other word you used, why it was so important to you is the sea. But then surfing after that is it's as much about the lifestyle as it is about how good you are at actually technically, completing maneuvers on the wave.
Yeah, it does seem like not all hobbies or sports, etc., come with sort of like what seems like kind of all-encompassing culture and philosophy, and surfing seems like it does. Again, I'm an outsider to that, so I don't really understand it. So please do talk about it. Yeah.
Yeah, well, you just articulated it very well. There's the big nature thing, but then the philosophy and the community, and you know, s- for me, all of my friends surf up. Well, nearly all of my friends up here surf. When the surf is good, all you want to do is like surf, eat well, sleep well. It's so good for your body and your mind. You're exercising a lot, you're in good shape, you're meeting people, you're pushing your boundaries. Like we surf in the winter here, it's cold, the sea can be scary sometimes, and you're putting yourself in that situation regularly. And it's really good for you as a person. It's really good for your sleep, it's good for your mental health, it's good for your physical health. It's just an amazing thing to be a part of. And if you if you just value it and have it as one of your big priorities in your life, all of these other things like without surfing, I know myself and lots of other people, like you're trying to manage your physical health, your mental health, getting out in nature, you know, all of these things separately. But if you surf, all of those things come together
Not
and
to mention
you
the
get to have
social life
fun
as
doing it.
well and all that.
Yeah, man, there's friends of mine I don't see at all in the summer. We're like best pals, and then we see each other multiple times a week in the winter, and we're talking all the time because the surf is good. And then once the
Mm.
summer comes in, like you just don't see each other. Everyone just goes off work, and it's real seasonal around here as well, work and that. So
Mm.
everyone's just working and keeping busy, and then September the swell comes again, and you're just meeting everyone again.
Mm. Well, here's another
So
unfair question for you, Connor. Let's use the hypothetical desert island situation. You know, you're stranded on a
yeah,
desert island and you can have either a surfboard or a flute. Which one would you choose?
yeah, I know. Yeah, I've thought about it a lot. Probably
Mm.
like if there was good waves, I'd say I'd check surfboard.
You want to, so you'd want to check the surf first, see the waves
Yeah,
first. Are the waves good? Then, but if the waves are crap, then no, give me a flute, huh?
yeah. Like if I was on an island with no waves, yeah, surfboard would be no good to me. So I'd pick a flute.
Yeah, gotcha. So it's situational. I got you. That's fair. That's fair. Well, with all
Yeah,
this talk about the ocean and the sea, you have a track that's called Atlantic. It's track 5
yeah.
on here. I wonder what it feels like from your end, Connor, because I feel like for me personally, over here, like I say, you know, physically removed from the Atlantic Ocean by miles and miles of dirt, living in a place where I don't have anything like it for my direct experience, but also very much removed in time from any, well, speaking of ancestors, right? Any people to whom I have any connection who were near the Atlantic, especially on the other side of it. And yet I'm also very interested in the musical tradition that has a lot to do with the Atlantic Ocean,
Mm.
with an export of music from the east side of the Atlantic to the west side of the Atlantic, as well as sort of the back and forth conversation that goes across I mean, like the Atlantic Ocean comes up as a topic in lyrics, but also as backstory for musicians and for the the topics and themes that people are writing music about, etc. A lot. And I do feel like there's something there that I don't get. Like I can't tap into it all the way because I don't have that experience.
Yeah.
And I find that interesting. I don't know what I'm asking you to do. Be my therapist, maybe? I'm not sure, Connor, but the Atlantic Ocean seems like it's important. It's even important to me, though I don't know exactly why. I can't quite
Y-
understand it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's what humans do, we look to nature.
Mm.
That's what we do. That's what we're best at. We are part of nature ourselves. So if people who live up in the mountains, they know a lot about the mountains, and the mountains mean a lot to them, the same way the Atlantic means a lot to us. And people who live in the desert, and different parts of the world, that's what means a lot to them, are the big pieces of nature nearby. So
Mm.
ours is the Atlantic.
It is kind of lovely how where we are seems to make an imprint on us. It's like we can't help
Oh,
but be affected, huh?
absolutely. Like it's undeniable. It's sooner you can realize that and jump straight in, but like the better. Like you are your place, your place is
Mm.
you. It's one thing.
Mm.
That's why where you are is so important.
Mm.
Where you place yourself, you know, physically and geographically in the world is so important to how your life will be.
Speaking of big things, and maybe especially big things that I don't have direct experience with, the only track that we haven't talked about yet is does the title for track 4, does that mean whale in Irish?
That's Blue Whale.
I think I did like a Google Translate thing initially, like, what does that mean? And I think I got back like monster or something like that. I was like, well, interesting.
Yeah,
Doesn't
well,
feel like a monster, but
no, Irish is like that. Let me just look up this for sure.
yeah, of course.
Miol, animal, insect, creature. So that's the direct translation of the word meal.
Mm,
and an meal more is the whale and the blue whale in this context.
mm,
Um, yeah, so that's Irish for you, the the words kind of describe what the animal is in a lot of contexts.
mm,
Like whale doesn't describe the animal, but like meal more does, like
mm.
massive creature.
Massive creature. Yeah.
you know. So it's a
Have
very
you had
descriptive
direct
language, like.
have you had direct encounters with whales being out in the water so much?
Oh, not so much in the water, but it is common for basking sharks to be around when people are
Good
surfing.
heavens.
Um,
I'm scared of
yeah,
deep water. You know, Connor, like it just in general, maybe it's because of a lack of exposure, but the idea of it frightens me. And
yeah,
then you say sharks. Forget about it,
yeah.
man. I
But
can't.
basking sharks, they'd be more likely to come up and lick you than eat you, to be honest.
Well, you know what? That's
Basking sharks.
scary enough for me. I don't want to
You
get licked by a
wouldn't.
shark either.
You can swim with basking sharks. They're just flying around with their mouths open, eating small things, plankton and stuff
Mm,
like that.
yeah.
They're not interested in humans. They wouldn't be able to eat you.
Yeah.
But dolphins, like you see dolphins all the time, all
Yeah.
the time. There are a couple of dolphins. Joe, they have their turf. No, well, it's not turf because it's in the sea, but they have their territories like dolphins
Mm,
do. So there are one or two that have a big length of the coast here in Clare, one especially, and you'd often see dolphins surfing. You could be surfing away, and one will just come up beside you, and then it's underwater for a while, and it'll come up beside someone else or out to sea. Or they're very they're very sociable,
mm,
and they're curious, so they come in around where the surf is, and if you're in surfing, it's not unusual at all for the dolphin. Like you wouldn't even come in, you wouldn't even talk about it that much. It's so common
really,
to
because you see them
to
so
see the
often. Wow.
dolphins.
That's wild.
Yeah,
Well,
but
I'm,
the
I'm
blue
relieved that
whale, I
it's a
think,
friendly thing because I thought you were
yeah,
about to tell me that
totally.
they were territorial and what like, oh, the sharks are fine, but you got to watch out for these dolphins. They get.
Yeah, yeah. Like the only issue people have with dolphins is because if they do come into play, and then some human being tries to play with them in a way that isn't what
Mm,
you do. People, they're very big animals. Like if they turn, they could
mm,
hurt you or whatever. So you just let them do their thing, and
mm.
they'll leave. They're not interested in hurting you. Like,
Well, speaking of things that bring me anxiety and worry, Connor, this track does the opposite. I shouldn't be the guy who decides like I'm not picking a favorite, but I can tell you like I have hopped directly to this track multiple times precisely
nice,
to like chill myself out. Um,
nice,
and it works really well. I get that feeling even just talking about it right now.
nice.
And and it's not even just the calm beginning, like that's a big part of it. There's kind of like a breath. Actually, is that one of the flute sounds that you make too? There's like a breathing sound throughout. Is that you through the flute?
Yeah, the wind sound, that's flute. Yeah.
I don't want to express this in the wrong way, like, but you know, like you take some trad music, like a standard jig or a reel or something, you know, that is kind of like, it's like a form that maybe you might say we're all familiar with. I don't mean to sound presumptuous, but like if you play whistle or flute or something like that, you listen to it once or twice and your fingers kind of start playing along. You know, like there's like some clear forms there, you know. There's some stuff that you do throughout this. Well, it's like, I love listening to it. It's inaccessible for me to imagine playing along with it. There's like maybe something concrete that I just don't understand. And I wonder if this is a silly way for me to describe it, but there's a part in this melody line, Connor, where you go like, doot 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 doot. Does that sound at all familiar?
Yeah, that's part of the improvised solo section in the middle.
What I was wondering is like, if there is something like, we might call it like trad music theory, where it's like, you know, you don't have to stay in the boxes, but broadly speaking, here are some of the movements or shapes that tend to show up in trad music. You get good at that, etc. This is, to me, it seems like, okay, there's clearly like a structure here, you know, like there's a shape here, but it's not one that I'm familiar with. And it made me wonder, like, are you a student of jazz, or like, is this coming from somewhere else?
Yeah, totally. Like, I spend most of my time practicing and listening to, you know, jazz. I used to practice a bit of classical music, but improvised music, not specifically trad jazz, but like new jazz, a lot of improvised music. I'm listening to a lot of flute players playing with bands and different styles of music. And that's what I spend my time doing. Like, I'm only practicing trad at home if I'm learning repertoire for a gig that's coming up. But when I'm practicing my flute technique, I'm playing technical stuff from different other styles of music. You know, we've heard people say music is a language. Well, like Irish trad is a language and jazz is a language. Well, there's different types of languages within jazz, and then there's lots of different types of styles of music, languages, and they're all speaking a language that's built on vocab. And so if you learn different pieces of vocab from different languages, then you have them to work with depending on the piece of music you're in. So that's the way I approached that. So even though that sounded like it had nothing to do with Irish music, it's because it didn't have anything to do with Irish music, but it was totally normal for me to do it.